On and see when I talk. Sometimes I get double fit. No, I don't. No double. Oh, I think I'm all set up. On and see when I talk. Sometimes I get double microphone. No, I don't. No double. All right, there we go. I think I'm all set up. So welcome. I'm going to call the meeting to order and say welcome to everybody and thanks to all the members for being here. And we're going to start with the confirmation of the agenda. Is everyone okay with the agenda? Any changes? Nope. Hearing none. And we've got our signer again tonight. Sometimes I get double microphones captioning. All right, there we go. So I hope welcome. I'm going to call the meeting to order and say welcome to everybody and thanks to all the members for being here. And we're going to start with the confirmation of the agenda. Is everyone okay with the agenda? Any changes?
No, I don't think so. Do you want me to just ask?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. If you're participating on Zoom, can you make sure that your YouTube is muted?
Our signer again tonight. Sometimes I get double microphones captioning. All right, there we go. So I hope welcome. I'm going to call the meeting to order and say welcome to everybody and thanks to all the members for being here. And we're going to start with the confirmation of the agenda. Is everyone okay with the agenda? Any changes?
No, I don't think so. Do you want me to? It'll start now.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. If you're participating on Zoom, can you make sure that your YouTube is muted?
Our signer again tonight. Sometimes I get double microphones captioning. All right, there we go. So I hope welcome. I'm going to call the meeting to order and say welcome to everybody and thanks to all the members for being here. And we're going to start with the confirmation of the agenda. Well, that's me. Is everyone okay with the agenda? Any changes?
What you said, but do you want me to? It'll start now.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. If you're participating on Zoom, can you make sure that your YouTube is muted?
Our signer again tonight. So that's weird. Do you think it's something I've hooked up?
Can those participants on Zoom still hear me?
Are we good now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you.
It's disappeared? Yes. Or it's not replaying?
No, but let's continue and I'll see if the sound is working on the live stream.
Okay.
I'm going to turn off the sound here.
All right, so we need a mover and seconder for the agenda. Moved by Olivia, seconded by Gisela. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Does anyone have a pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Anyone with a conflict of interest on any items? Hearing none. Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes, and are there any changes? No? Okay, we could have a mover and seconder move that the minutes from the Accessibility Advisory Committee special meeting held August 21st, 2024 be adopted as presented. Moved by Stu, seconded by Kate. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Announcements. Have any announcements from anybody? Gisela, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you want to talk about the event on Saturday for your book? Gisela wrote a book, and it's going to be at the Book Fest at the library on Saturday. So, yeah, just push that button and perfect.
But I don't know that it has to do with the meeting.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. So the Picton Library is having an authors festival. I think it's the first annual from 10:30 till 1:30, I believe, and I'll be there.
Thank you, Gisela. With your book that you wrote.
Amazing.
Yes.
Kate,
Can I just ask Isola to elaborate with the title?
yes.
The title of the book is called Moving On, and the subtitle is How Arthritis Gave Me a New Life.
Thanks so much.
Roy?
Thank you. This Saturday is going to be a Marysburgh fair, and all buildings should be accessible. The one where the craft works are, we can get into the south side of the building to make it entirely accessible to everyone. And please show up, you're welcome. And the Reasons are playing the afternoon, and that's a drawing crowd in itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. That's good news that they're making it accessible. It's important, so we can all get in the door. Any other announcements? No? Okay, how about deputations? Do we have any deputations tonight? No? Any comments from the audience on items? Nope. Okay. So that gets us right into our items. Item 8.1 is the Parkland Dedication Project's consultation, and there are 3 listed on our agenda. We have Director. I'll let you introduce yourself to the whole committee so that.
Thank you very much. So through the chair to the committee, my name is Ashley and I work in community services programs and initiatives, and I'm here to talk tonight about the Millpond Park project. So I've been working with a group of volunteers from the Bloomfield Rec Committee and the Business Association to help out with their vision to create better access and better awareness to the Millpond in Bloomfield, as well as the natural wetlands around it. So there's a few different pieces to this project, but as far as accessibility is concerned, one of the things that we're looking at is a formal pathway through the park. So right now, if you're familiar with the Millpond Park, any movement between the parking lot, the pond, the tennis court, the playground, and the conservation area, there's travel over grass or sand. And so in the work that the volunteers are doing in creating better awareness and access to the pond, there's also an opportunity to improve the accessibility within the park itself. We've been working closely with a landscape architect who designed quite a broad plan, and using some of the Parkland Reserve funds, we're able to implement portions of the plan. And so at this earlier stage, we're looking at focusing efforts on a path that will go through the park and connect some of these pieces of the park together. If you look at the attachment in the agenda package, there's a concept plan, and it shows the new path that's proposed that spans from Mill Street all the way to the parking lot on Brick Street. So it's about 165 meters in length, and what it does is create a new pedestrian entrance from Mill Street that is AODA compliant, and then the path would carry along through the park, past the conservation area, through the playground, all the way to the parking lot that's currently there. The yellow line shows where the pathway is proposed. The designer that we contracted to do the path and the plan was required to ensure that AODA guidelines were followed and looked at things like width, slope, surface materials, and things like that. We're still in the process of reviewing whether any edge protection is required. So if there's anyone on this committee who has expertise in that area, I would be interested to talk. AODA compliance was emphasized during the public meeting that was held back in June, and when the time comes, it will be also in the tender documents that go out for construction. At this stage, we're just finalizing the design and working through some last pieces of design work, and then we'll be preparing for the procurement, the construction of the pathway. So I will leave it there, but happy to answer any questions or take any comments from the committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashley, for for all of that information. So we'll open the floor to questions that anyone has. Stu?
Thanks. Yeah, my question is just about the pathway you mentioned. Do you know, is it decided what surface material it'll be at this point?
So the surface material that's recommended is a compacted granular, compacted to about a 95% compaction rate.
I'm sorry, Ashley, could you go back? What was the one thing you were saying if people have some expertise that you're interested in hearing?
So
It's book noted in my mind, but not the details around it.
the one detail that we're still working through is whether any edge protection is required. So it's hard to describe, but there is a bit of a slope that goes down towards the creek. And so just confirming whether edge protection, whether it's a railing or a curb or something along the edge of the path is required, or if the slope, the beginning of the slope is far enough away that we wouldn't need it. So.
And can you identify the distance presumed at this point from the top of the slope to where the path is considered to be?
I don't have that information here tonight, but it's something that I could get back to you on. And that's what I was a bit unclear on in the guidelines, is what that distance is. It seems to be a gray area in the research that I've done.
Okay, thank you.
Roy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My concern would be to make sure that this path and its width, and I realize it's not a super long one, but my concern is that if two people going opposite directions in a mobility scooter, which we're seeing more and more of, that there's at least an area where they can safely pass or pull off and the other one can pass. I believe this is important as we head into the future, planning ahead to ensure that's available.
Thank you for that comment. The design does take into account having two pedestrians passing one another. I believe the width is 6 feet for the pathway.
Just to follow up on Stu's question, the stuff that's put down on the trail to walk. So is that something that works for wheelchairs and walkers and?
I've been on pathways that have that type of surface and they've been fine.
Oh, okay. Oh, good, good.
They get a little bit, sometimes it's a bit of maintenance, rain, weather, and in my neighborhood, it's also the weeds that tend to grow on that type of surface. So there's a bit of maintenance required, but it was perfectly fine for me in a manual wheelchair.
And apart from the weeds, do they have to roll it every once in a while?
It has to be compacted, like you said. I don't know how long that lasts, but assuming it's compacted correctly, it should be good as far as I know.
So would that kind of maintenance just be in the budget, like our parks budget for maintenance of parks?
Yeah, so we have been working closely with our colleagues in recreation and facilities who oversee this particular park. And so the maintenance of this new pathway would get wrapped up into the regular maintenance of that park.
Okay.
Just to elaborate, we do have the equipment to actually rake, for example, ball diamonds, trails. We have that equipment. Staff are trained. They know how to use it, presumably. I mean, I think Director Lindsay would be able to elaborate far more than I could, but it is equipment that we use as a matter of daily business.
there any other questions on the Bloomfield Millpond Park? And are you doing the next, oh, Kate?
It looks great. You might want to consult the natural cover group to get planting suggestions if you want more than what's, yeah, thanks.
And it's good to see all the accessibility thought that's gone into it. It's appreciated.
Great, thank you.
And are you doing the next two as well?
No, I'm not. I've got some colleagues over here who will be
Okay, very
speaking to
good.
those projects.
Thank you, Ashley, so much. Well, here's a familiar face for us.
Long time no see. Through the chair to the committee, my name is Julianne. I work in the Community Services, Programs, and Initiatives Department, and I'm working on the Athol-South Marysburgh School Parkland project. So I'll give a little bit of background because it's a bit different than some of the other projects. So Athol Ward currently has limited parkland and green space. There's a small park at the Athol Town Hall, and there's also the Glendon Green Boat Launch in this ward. But other than that, the green space in this ward is Sandbanks Park, which requires an admission fee, and some other private green spaces. So the budget for the Athol Ward Parkland project is only $14,000. It's a small amount of money that was generated through parkland contributions in that ward. And so the idea for this ward's project was to partner with the Athol-South Marysburgh Public School and the school board to work on an agreement that would allow and encourage public access to the schoolyard when it's not being used for school purposes. So this would be after hours, on weekends, during school breaks, and in the summer. It's a hidden gem, the Athol-South Marysburgh schoolyard. It's a large piece of green property with lots of recreational amenities in it. It is currently used by the public after school hours as a park, and so this would be formalizing that type of arrangement and thinking about what would be required in agreement with the schoolyard to be able to promote that for public use for that ward. So the school council is in the middle of a fundraising project to revitalize their schoolyard. So there's already momentum for what that school community would like to do to improve the schoolyard. And so the municipality's role in this is, again, to figure out the ways that we can promote this as a place that the public can access outside of schoolyard or school times, and see what contributions we can make to their revitalization plans. So I will reiterate that it is a school board property, so it's not municipal property. They do, from an accessibility perspective, they have their own multi-year accessibility plan. They do have accessible parking on site. So anything that we would recommend for how they do work on their property would have to be negotiated with them and have to be in line with their accessibility plan and what they want to do with their property. So what we've done so far is we have consulted with representatives of the school administration. We have consulted with the school council on 2 separate occasions, and consulted with members of the Athol Recreation Committee. The school community, there was a student survey that was done to identify what the school population wanted to prioritize in terms of their schoolyard revitalization. And then we did some consultation with the public through the Have Your Say website. There was a survey and an ideas board, and we also did an in-person public consultation at the school back in June. And the Athol Ward Councillor, Councillor Branderhorst, has also been participating in the project all along. So what the school, what we heard from the school community was that they would like to prioritize improvements to their ball diamond, their baseball diamond. They'd like to prioritize improving the basketball court and adding pavement games, so painted like hopscotch style games to the pavement under the basketball court. And they'd like to create a welcome area, a seating area on the front lawn of the school. And I think that's where the municipality will probably participate most, is helping to bring some picnic tables to that beautiful shaded area under some nice old trees right at the front of the school, creating a welcome sign to encourage public use, and maybe a fun and creative way that the students can get involved to create a welcome sign that is sort of the terms of use of the space. So how does the school community encourage the public to use the space and be respectful of the space? And so the next step in this would be to negotiate an agreement with the school board about what public use of that property would look like, and how the municipality's $14,000 contribution would be used to support the project, again, primarily in that welcome area, and then whatever resources are left over would be invested in the improvements that they've prioritized in the schoolyard as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. It's a bit of a convoluted kind of project, and a different way of going about parkland spending, but a creative way to get a net increase in outdoor space in Athol Ward without having to purchase new property, which $14,000 can't do.
Thank you, Julianne. Is there any questions or comments? Okay.
So just thinking about if there is money left over. So I love the ideas that I'm hearing. I think it sounds great, and I think it's a really great way to bring the connection between the school and the community closer together. It's really lovely. It's already a strong community. And I love that the municipality and the school board and the members of staff there are working together in the school board. Like, those partnerships are so great to see evolving. And it's, kind of an evolving, growing relationship. So that's wonderful. I'm just wondering, if there are funds left over, and if there's an offering that could be made that does sort of think about accessibility, and maybe just keep that in the list of potential offerings for some equipment, particularly that might be welcoming to members of the community, for kids particularly, or looking to ensure that if there are benches that do go in that little front section, which is lovely, that they have those features, that they have accessible features at the end as well, potentially, like even if it's a nice picnic table, like a wooden picnic table that would suit the location, it would be nice to ensure that it had a bit of a long end that's high enough to accommodate. But it sounds really great, and I really think that the vision of the people who first started talking about that, they're going to be really excited.
Thank you. And through the chair, we did hear some feedback from the public about accessibility and trying to consider that. So in the next step of the conversation with them, we'll talk about whether we can meet accessibility standards in the front lawn with an accessible table that has a firm ground underneath it in places.
There's a bit of a slope, I think.
There's a little bit of a slope, and I believe there is a curb cut that gets you to the road where the accessible parking is as well. Right. So I'll make sure that that's part of the conversations as we're refining the details of the plan.
And can I just, as a follow-up, there are 2 swing sets? Are there?
Oh,
do you recall? I don't recall.
I don't have
my fuzzy memory.
Sorry.
I don't play in that playground because I'm old. But I think there were a couple of swing sets, and they're the strap kind. So it would be great to have, if you're communicating with the school board, it's their amenities and equipment. Thinking about creating a variety of seats that can suit some younger children as well, because I don't think they have a baby seat, but if it's open to the public, it would be great to have something for parents of small children and small children, and it would be great to consider an accessible chair. I don't know if there's anyone in the community who would, I think there are people who live in the immediate vicinity who might appreciate an accessible seat, and everyone can use them anyway. So those would be a couple of If memory serves, and there are swing sets, it would be great to see those swing sets diversified.
Great, thank you.
Roy?
Yeah, I notice in just about every building in the county that the fire alarm systems are non-compliant. And we can spend hundreds of thousands to straighten that out, but something as simple as a hook on a wall that you just go like that and pull the alarm would make it totally accessible. So I would like to think that some of these things that fall under accessibility, we could do it very cheap, very quickly, so no one's going to get caught not being able to pull an alarm. And to me, it looks like that's the biggest problem, is just in fact the heights.
I will let Director Lindsay speak to the building issues in the next item on the agenda, but I do agree that sometimes a simple solution is all that's needed to make things more accessible.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other comments or questions or thoughts on this? If not, thank you very much. And the more accessible stuff we're going to get there will be better. It's good. It's a beautiful site then. Yeah, a lot of space. Thanks, Julian. The next is a big island boat launch. Someone presenting on that?
It's Troy.
Oh, Troy. Ah, there you are. Hi. I see you're
Hi.
Nice to put a face and a name together.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so through you, Chair, to the committee, yes, my name is Troy Gilmore. I'm the Director of Operations. I am responsible for the Big Island Boat Launch Parkland project. I will say that we're not as far along as maybe the other projects, because just 24 hours ago, we had our first public consultation. I will say it was a huge success. We had almost 30 people there providing all sorts of great ideas for the boat launch and the green space. I will bring, when we finalize it down to the last couple, I will bring it back to the committee. But some of the ideas mentioned in our consultation was a sitting area, benches, a picnic shelter. There was some mention of a canoe and kayak launch for easier access to get in and out of. They were really the major ones. Other ones really didn't go with the funding project. But as mentioned, when we finalize it, narrow it down, I'll bring it back to the next meeting and discuss a little bit more in depth of the plan of the park. But I will say that there is some nice level green space that could accommodate some sitting areas that would definitely fit in with all the accessibility requirements. So.
Thank you, Troy. Any questions or comments? Stu?
Thanks. Yes, I just had a question for you, Troy, about the paddle boat kayak launch. Is it proposed to be more like just a dock with the correct height to get into the kayaks?
Through you, Chair, to the committee, yes, it's a launch where it keeps the kayak or canoe stable. It is a little bit higher, but it's more of a saddle. So it's not tippy. You can get in without tipping it. And then there's bars. You can just sort of shove yourself out slowly and begin the paddle. So it really does, assist in the paddlers for stability.
Sounds good. I've seen examples where they're designed for people even in wheelchairs to get into kayaks and things. And some of them are very extravagant and just not appropriate for this setting. But some are just features like you just described. Railings to add stability so the boat doesn't tip as you're getting in, or the correct height. The more extravagant ones are almost ramps with wheels, and you set the kayak up on this thing and then it slides down to get into the water. So there's very fancy, but very basic. But some of the features you've mentioned would certainly help, even if I was to be a little adventurous and try it. So even that would help, and I appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
And through you, Chair, to the committee, I'm so glad you brought that up, and it's something I'll explore even further. I am doing a huge boat launch report coming probably in January, so it's something I'll look at not just this boat launch, but others as well. So thanks for bringing that up.
Very good. Yeah, because some of those kayak launchers, you could perhaps, if you're strong enough, could get over into the kayak, which lets you arm your way out, right? That'd be quite exciting. That's a beautiful boat launch.
Yes.
Well, it's gonna be more beautiful when you finish with it.
That's really interesting and exciting, and I'm just looking them up, and they look great and very, like you said, very simple. Not crazy fancy. Looks like there's, it would be great to have at least one somewhere in the county. That would be just terrific. So I'm just wondering about seating. If there are places for people to have a seat planned, if the consultations spoke to the need for accessible seating, or just generally seating, which I would presume would be accessible if you go forward with some. Is there anything, was there anything in the consultation? Like accessible picnic tables, back to our last conversation.
Through you, Chair, to the committee. Yes, it was mentioned briefly. However, there is, as mentioned, there is some level green space there that could definitely accommodate that. So I'm sure I'll be coming back to this committee and with a little further plans, but it definitely can be done in this particular area.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just lost my Zoom. I'm reading, I read the closed captioning when I can't hear everything, and I've lost it. It says Zoom Workplace. So the Prince Edward County guest kicked me out. I don't know if there's any buttons you need to push there, Catalina, but network connection is failing. But I don't want to hold things up. So is there any other questions for Troy? And if anyone, I can't see Jeffrey, so if there's anything, wave at me. Okay, so if there's no other questions, we do have a motion, and we can expand motions to reflect thoughts on accessibility and inclusion of and stuff. But the suggested motion is that the update on the Parkland dedication projects consultation be received. Does anyone want to move that, or in other words? Kate?
You don't need a red, do you?
Oh, yeah, you're going to move that?
Do you want it? Sorry?
You're going to move that motion?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, moved by Kate, seconded by Roy. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. So that takes us to, I'll just keep working on this then. We're going to do the next item, which is 8.2, Facilities Condition Assessment Update. And we have Director Lisa Lindsay here with us tonight again. Thank you for coming, Lisa. Okay, very good. Yes, so we'll hand the chair over to Kate while I get reestablished here. Thank you.
Okay, so, welcome Director Lindsay.
Microphone.
It's not letting me. There we go. Welcome Director Lindsay now on mic. Hi, welcome. Are you going to begin the conversation tonight?
Certainly.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor McNaughton. So the purpose for my attendance today is to explain the attachment that you received and to provide an update on what the physical properties plan is with our municipal buildings. And so in 2021, you had attached a summary of findings from an AODA assessment. So this was an assessment done based on a grant the municipality received to do a deep dive into some opportunities and some potential accommodation changes for our municipal assets. All of our municipal assets are pre-amalgamation, and in some cases, there are an awful lot of buildings, not in some cases, in all cases, there are an awful lot of buildings that do not have an asset management plan. We certainly do not have AODA requirements met. And so this in 2021 was an opportunity to see what we might be able to do with some of our buildings, some of our lease holdings. It was a grant to begin a conversation to make change. So from that, you'll find that they did an assessment, and it was an assessment based on building code and the Rick Hansen guidelines on where we're deficient. And there was also some motions on some divesting of buildings and some considerations that were not received by council. So this KPMG document was a beginning tool for us to have detailed information about our buildings. Since that time, in 2023, the municipality has embarked on a facility condition assessment of all of our buildings in the beginning steps of developing an asset management plan, which is a requirement in the 2025 year provincially. So we've done 49 buildings. This is an additional detail on all of our buildings that deals with all of the components specifically, a little different than the KPMG report. And so although this is a tool that certainly we wanted to make sure you were aware of, it's the beginning steps of getting our report card on all of our buildings. So we can start to create a prioritization on the upgrades that we do. An example would be Bloomfield Town Hall. So we knew from this report, but we also already knew that the ramp was non-compliant. But through the facility condition assessments, we're aware that the foundation requires some imminent work as well. So putting both of this information together, it is going to lead us to the opportunity to develop a prioritization capital plan that will incorporate AODA throughout the 10-year budgeting. So an example would be, we know the ramp needs to be replaced, but now we know that the foundation needs to be replaced as well. So you'd want to replace the foundation before you replace the ramp, because if we put in a $100,000 AODA ramp and then needed to take it away to replace the foundation, that is certainly not an efficient way of operating. So this is one of the tools, and it was certainly motivated that we wanted to ensure that the committee was aware that we are working on our AODA findings. The next steps from the facility condition assessments coming to council, I believe in October, would then be to be working towards, based on decisions council make, an actually accessible audit that will start to help us budget and prioritize where we need to start investing money and getting projects completed. So that was kind of a lot to kind of say we're halfway down the road of a process, but we certainly know that this tool was something the committee were interested in having.
Just wanted to check with the real chair before I continue chairing. So thank you for that.
It's a lot. I know that's
No,
a lot.
that's good. That's a good intro. Do people have questions, thoughts, concerns that they would like to? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Pennell.
Yeah, thanks. Under the Bloomfield Town Hall, off to the side, it says the Bloomfield Fire Hall does not meet the guidelines in any of the areas, and yet I look for the town hall. Does that mean both of them don't meet it, or?
I can't remember. Do I have to go through the chair?
Oh, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Just
I'm really
please
sorry
speak
about
to
that.
Councillor Pennell.
so,
Feel free.
Councillor Pennell, there are no buildings that are fully compliant.
I
But-
realize, but this is saying none of them, and yet I look at the hall, it says, the town hall says it's non-compliant, but off to the side, it says the Bloomfield Fire Hall does not. So is it both?
Yes. So to answer your question, it is both. It's bathrooms and it's door widths and it's a variety of different things. So right now in our operating budget, we have plans to do some modernization at what I think we call the Mallory Road Fire Hall, to be able to have staff and fire be able to work cohesively there and maximize space. So as we're doing some of the deficiencies from a building perspective, we are also incorporating the AODA deficiencies as well. So we're marrying the information together. So, but you are correct. They both are not, but Mallory Road will be much closer at the end of this year.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Other questions, other thoughts? Chair Irene.
You know, I have a question, Director, about the example you gave, which was that if you have a building where the foundations need replacing, and say we would want to put an expensive ramp that then has to come down. What crossed my mind was, but how long before the foundation's going to be done? If you know that that building and all of the other priorities you have, if in your priority list say, well, we won't get to those foundations for 8 years. Why would we not put a ramp in now for those 8 years? I think it's a culture for me about where does accessibility fit? How urgent is it really? If in that kind of example, I think, well, I'd want to know, if you said to me, look, the next year we're redoing the foundation, we'll do the ramp at the same time. We're going to put them both in the same budget at the same time. I would be persuaded. If you said, no, 5 years, 8 years out, by the time you get around to doing that, the ramp will need replacing anyways. So I just wonder how you are prioritizing things. What's the urgency around the accessibility?
Well, this is going to be the exciting part of what comes forward in October, because through the facility condition assessments, every component has been rated on a scale of when it needs to be replaced. And in combination with the buildings, we're getting more and more information about the AODA compliance. And the prioritization is something that's going to be coming forward to council. So, you know, public spaces, I believe, are obviously going to end up likely being chosen to be higher on the priority list, as opposed to maybe some private operation locations where they aren't open to the public. But this is going to be coming forward to council so we can justify and have a plan for exactly what you're talking about. Now, the Bloomfield ramp is a town hall that is extremely busy, and we have been trying to get that ramp replaced. And honestly, it's quite fortunate that the projects came in over budget and we didn't replace it, because we now know how poor of a condition the foundation is in. And we have a capital budget coming forward in 2025 to replace the foundation, because I've been working with the Community Programs, Services and Initiatives Department for a grant for the ramp. So that's what we're trying to do, is take all of that information. And this is one where there was a grant opportunity. We had the ramp design. That's how Bloomfield got chosen. But coming forward to council will be all the details so that we can be working on those prioritizations and get the counselors' guidance on how we move forward with those things. But that's really what the intention is.
On the chair temporarily. So I just want to follow up on sort of this exchange and what you're saying, and look for some further clarity. So, for example, I mean, this is the perfect example. Is it correct to think perhaps we want to put some sort of accessibility lens on the prioritization overall, so that we can ensure that even if a foundation is not going to be done, even if large work isn't going to be done, even if, for example, an elevator might not be able to be replaced with a better one in the short term, can we still be seeing, even though there are, problems with a heritage building that would not sort of be built that way today, can we still be seeing improvements that grant access to members of the public? So I'm still not kind of understanding how we're going to balance the priorities. Because, with heritage buildings, often the foundations would never be built that way today. They might be able to live in their condition for 20 years and not compromise anyone's health or safety. They just need to be monitored. So do we propose putting an accessible lens on all prioritizations or something to that effect?
Well, Councillor McNaughton, that is exactly what's going to be coming forward to council in October, because we now have our components of all of our buildings. We know what is critically failing. We know that what is in fair condition. We know what is in good condition. And our conversation in October is going to help us form what that budget will need to look like and get further direction. It also will give us the opportunity to determine where council wants us to go with all of our buildings. Because when you look at, the costs for the upcoming asset management plan, there may be some decisions that have to be made. So we certainly want to go through that exercise. There are some buildings that still have not been done. So we are also working on getting a quotation that will come to budget for a full accessibility audit on the buildings that haven't been done. So for example, public washrooms have not been done yet, which was not a part of this previous project and wasn't a part of the facility condition assessments, which was trying to get the report card generally on the building. And then based on what council's decision is and the prioritization of those buildings and what council's will is, will determine how we do that. But I certainly believe that both of those, the condition of the buildings and the components that need to be replaced, will be done part and parcel, I believe, with where the greatest accessibility needs are. Based on critical failures, it will be based on what the decisions are made by council.
So, and the facilities reports, will there be executive summaries on the reports that we're going to be seeing in October? Or will there be access online to the reports themselves?
Haven't received them yet. We're expecting them at the end of the week, and I'm watching every day because I have to still write a report. So, so
it's coming close.
Yeah, but the good news is we now are starting to know the state of our buildings, and once we have the state of our buildings and we start repairing things, obviously we incorporate accessibility in every upgrade and change that we do, and like Irene mentioned, it may also change which buildings get prioritized based on those needs as well.
Thank you. Councillor Pennell.
I was just going to say, in fairness to the director, they've gone ahead, they've made these preparations, but it's got to come back to council, it's got to come back to budgets, and supposing the ramp was in for that hall to put one in outside. If the elevator in Shire Hall was to go out all of a sudden, I'm certain council would take a priority one over the other. So ultimately, the director is getting us prepared for what we've got to look in the future, but then it's going to be up to council to set priorities, and depending on how things are looking, there may be things we'd all like to see, but it comes down to what you can afford in any one budget year. So this way we're prepared, but nobody can say, well, we're just going to go ahead and do all that. It would be wonderful, but where's the money come from? Like, we have to look at that too, in fairness.
Thank you. Irene?
Well, just to follow up on Roy was saying. Oh, thank you. Just to follow up on what I was saying, like, I guess I'm worried about the priorities, because I'm not sure council sets it, like, if council says, okay, you can spend $200,000 to fix the Bloomfield building and we'll include accessibility, go off and do it. Or Shire Hall, let's make it Shire Hall accessible, which we did. We put in beautiful new seating to allow more wheelchairs, but we forgot we have a ramp that you can't get in the building safely. You can't get, like, the ramp doesn't meet code, and that's a service elevator. According to that report, it's not a real people elevator. So you sit there and you kind of go, well, I wonder who thought it through. If we have $200,000 for building X, who in the accessibility community do you go to say, how do we get people in the door and using the building? We only have this much money. 200 of the 200,000, how much is going for accessibility? And then who advises you on, well, as we think it through, here's a way you could do this cheaper, you could do this more expensive, you could do the ramp this way, not this way, without hiring a consultant. And my sense is that there's tons of, you know, where do the brains on this committee give input to you on that? Or is it that council is going to give you specific direction on that? Who's going to take what money there is and determine what goes when? I still don't kind of have that picture, that understanding.
Well, honestly, Irene, sorry, I understand where you're thinking, and I understand your concern, because it's a huge undertaking to have amalgamated in 1998 and to not have any formal asset management plan for our buildings to date. You know, we're starting back probably a lot further than we wanted to, but council has directed this work to be done. So there's obviously motivation and goodwill for us to not just let our buildings crumble around us and not have people be able to access them, but there will be some tough decisions, because we certainly understand that we have a community that tax increases are something that's also a challenge. So I believe we're going to be looking at the state of our buildings. The decisions that council make regarding the buildings will then form the accessibility audit, and then that's when I believe this committee will start to become involved. It's been quite a monster of a project, and I would say we're a little more than halfway down the line of having all the information to be able to make all of the decisions to move forward. But I certainly agree with you. It takes people around this table, and it takes experts for us to be deciding some of these things. Now, in many instances, though, some of the things we move forward on are based on very specific grants that are for very specific things, which is what Shire Hall council chambers were for. We also applied for a grant that would have enhanced the accessible washrooms and made them for interior and exterior, and have redone the whole ramp, but we didn't receive that grant. So we certainly are looking wherever we can to try to get as much done with grant dollars. But this committee will be consulted every step of the way, but we really are at the beginning stages of councillor learning about the buildings we have and the condition that they're in, which will then inform those future decisions.
Thank you. Are there further questions and comments? And just checking on the screen. Hi, Jeff. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you very much. So did we get this on the floor before we ran into trouble with the Zoom? I can't recall. Did we get? We did not. So we'll put this on the floor. Can I get a mover and a seconder to put it on the floor that the update on the facilities condition assessment KPMG Appendix B be received? And thank you to staff for attaching that to this agenda. I don't recall ever seeing it, and it was painful reading, but I mean, we expect that with an old community with heritage buildings, and we can move forward.
It's just partial information, which is why
It's
kind of
a
giving
good
a little
overview.
bit without giving everything.
No.
But thank you for that, and I look forward to coming forward with more.
It's a good overview to get us started. So can I get someone to put it on the floor? Thank you, Councillor Pennell. And thank you, Gisela. Thank you. Did you have a, yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair, I guess my question for, and the guidance from the councillors and the committee is that I just wonder if we should be drawing this to the attention of council to say, you know, if there's going to be a 10-year capital plan, or if there's going to be capital dollars available, that somewhere there has to be an agreement that a certain amount of that is going to be applied to making our buildings accessible. And I'm not sure that we're in a position to do that, to say what the percentage would be, or if it's something that council could direct staff to advise on. How do we make capital budget allocations ensure that a certain amount go to making our buildings accessible? I don't know if we can do that, but my advice to council would be, look at this, we got a problem, and do something.
So would you want to move forward with an amendment just to look at circulating this report to council, or we could just send it quite easily, or would you like to, or you know, when we get down the road, when we have this item on the agenda in October, we're probably going to have a much bigger window. I would like to recognize our clerk. Go for it.
Through the chair to the chair, I do want to caution you, as the director noted, that this isn't a complete picture. So
Yes.
when the report comes to council, it may be beneficial to have the chair do a deputation at that time so that you can digest the full picture and then perhaps provide council with some feedback. And that might be a better time than doing a motion saying spend, just throwing a number out there, 10%.
Yeah, I don't think that was the idea right now. It was to like think about how.
Yeah, so I just want to just caution you about the
Yeah.
passing motions. If it's, I'm happy to share this. Like, I think actually, Lisa, you are including this as an attachment to your report.
Excellent. Okay. So, and there's also going to be, if there is an opportunity to return the report itself to the Accessibility Committee, you've got two counselors on who will be part of that conversation. Councillor Pennell.
I want to be very honest up front. I, as a counselor, would not be respecting too much from this committee if they're directing us what to do, because we have a million things across the whole county we have to look at. Now, last year, council had a priority to put a ramp in, but costs of it were much higher than what we anticipated. A decision had to be made that it was cut off.
Councillor
That
Pennell,
same
I don't
thing-
think anyone's saying that we should tell council how much money to spend. I don't think that's, I think.
Well, I think indirectly
Irene
we
was,
have that.
no, I think Irene was wondering if we should be, when, like, what's the time, what's the mechanism to provide input? Is what I sort of imagined.
Yeah, to
That's
make
what I
sure-
sort of understood.
Everyone has that right at budget time because it is now set up that way. So you can have input from the public or groups like this. That's something that hasn't happened in the past. So I believe you're covered now, and you've got every right, if something's coming before council, to speak to that behalf. But once again, council will make the decision.
But I just want to be sure that our advice to council would be, when you're spending money, capital money on buildings, make sure some of it's assigned to accessibility, making the building accessible. Don't leave that out. That's all I'm saying, Councillor. I believe and
So I think what we heard from the clerk was good advice, which is the committee could be looking to our chair to represent a concern that that accessibility never get lost throughout this process. We've heard from staff that it's a very serious consideration, and we can all move forward together and look for the best opportunities to do that. And there might be many. So, but I mean, certainly if I don't know if we would need a motion to ask the chair to undertake something like a presentation when that meeting comes forward in October. We could entertain that, or, I mean, as individuals, we can all be participating. Either way. Yes.
Councillor McNaughton, it's just being drafted right now on the major template as I'm awaiting Rothheim's report. But certainly it will be a motion of some form that will indicate that following a variety of decisions, a full accessibility audit would be required on the buildings so that we can have some costing and prioritization from professionals. Because this report, this is a snapshot, and this is not, this is a guideline, and it's on a few of the buildings. So that, so I think also sharing that report, because it will be an open session report, I believe, with the accessibility committee, so that they would be able to have that in their inbox to see that that is a part of the whole picture, would probably then have you decide whether you wanted to do a deputation or not as the report's published.
so will this report be attached to our report to council? Is that what you're saying? The council will have this report?
No, I'm going to be attaching this.
That what, sorry?
Irene, I'm going to be attaching this summary because this committee has received it. I need to ensure council has it as well. Even though it's only a brief, it's not by profession, it's not a professional accessibility audit, and it doesn't do all of our buildings, but I think it does give a good snapshot, and it will also be an attachment in my report. But I can, if the clerk agrees, that we would share with this committee when that report is published. And that will have the information in there that may inform whether you wanted to do a deputation or not.
So, and just to clarify, when the minutes from this meeting go forward to council, the agenda link is also shared, so people will be able to, councillors will be able to, and the public will be able to look at anything on this agenda from tonight as well. So it's going to be it's going to be received by council potentially twice if they're clicking on agendas. And again, I would return to what we've done in the past, depending on the reports in front of us, is we have also referred reports or items from reports back to committees. So if there is something that's appropriately referred back to this committee at that time, if there's something concrete at that time, council can refer it back to the committee for exploration. And ensure that will ensure that it will not get lost. Another comment, Councillor Pennell?
No, I was just.
Do you want to turn your mic on?
I was just prepared to make the motion as it stands because this information is coming back to us. I think that we're jumping the gun a bit to move ahead on something that we don't have the whole story on.
I don't think we've done anything other than look at this motion. So I don't think anything else has
I am
been
prepared to
entertained.
make the motion
Sure.
as it stands.
Can we get a seconder? Oh, did we have a mover and a seconder? We did, never mind. Thanks anyway, though. We did actually put it on the floor. If are there further comments or questions okay, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. And I'm gonna just check, do you want me to continue?
If you don't mind.
I don't
because
mind.
I can't get into Zoom now.
Oh, the world of tech is supposed to make our lives so easy. Maybe AI will solve it for us. So moving on, we've got item 8.3, which is the item on DEI training. And I'm going to get this on the floor right at the beginning of the conversation. If I can get a mover and a seconder to put it on the floor that the update from the Internal Staff Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Working Group regarding the orientation to DEI action planning session be received. We'll get that on the floor. Thank you, Olivia. And seconded by Stu. Thank you, Stu. And hello and welcome. Would you all introduce yourselves?
Through the chair to the committee. Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Hoskins, and I am the executive assistant to the director at H.J. McFarland Memorial Home.
Hi, everyone. My name is Keaton Zachariah, and I use they, them pronouns. I'm a programs and services assistant for the Community Services Programs and Initiatives Department.
And my name is Caprice Skinner. I work for the clerk's office and I am a legislative and customer service specialist. So today we will be talking to you about the DEI Working Group's proposal for council, boards, and committee training. So as many of you guys know, the municipality committed to the development of a equity, diversity.
Give yourself 2 more inches between you have to get kind of close and directional. Okay. But if you get too close, it'll snap back.
Okay. My apologies, everyone.
Don't apologize. Takes getting used to.
So, of a municipal equity, diversity, and inclusion strategy as an action within the municipality's corporate strategic plan under the Support a Community That Cares pillar of the plan. A first step towards this was the creation of a working group of staff from all across departments in 2024. The working group is identifying several strategies, including training, that they believe would make a positive difference both internally in the corporation and externally in our interactions with the community. The Accessibility Advisory Committee has identified DEI as a priority in their own work plan for this term of council. At the February 13th, 2024 council meeting, the committee's recommendation to educate council and advisory committees with respect to DEI was approved by motion.
So adding on to that, the DEI Working Group has identified the need for orientation for boards, committee, and council to develop DEI action plans, as opposed to having a one-time, one-sided training. This content would be approximately 2 hours long for one session, and it would use different types of adult learning styles, including visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Action plans would also be developed by each of these committees, boards, and council to be a part of the DEI strategy that'll come back before council in 2025. This approach would focus on knowledge and skill building, with the context of each group being trained developing their own action plan to access the additional training or resources required to make specific commitments to implement what they have learned in the specific context of their roles and functions. So these action plans, like mentioned, would be added to existing work plans that each of these committees and boards would have. Some of the different content that would be included in these sessions would include what diversity, equity, and inclusion is, the difference between equality, equity, and inclusion, understanding power and marginalization, and looking at what DEI skills in action and what that looks like in the context of the county. In addition to this, and for use depending on specific nature of each action plan within the groups, it's proposed that there be a library of resource materials and other access to subject matter experts that would touch on more specific content and topics that come from those training sessions.
Okay, this is a good distance. So next is the proposed steps. The DEI working group believes the approach outlined will support the commitment to the corporate strategic plan and responds to the recommendations from the Accessibility Advisory Committee that was endorsed by Council. For these reasons, the working group would like to have the Accessibility Advisory Committee pilot or test the Orientation to DEI Action Planning session, provide any feedback, and ideally recommend to Council afterward that the training be given to all volunteers on the county, appointed boards and committees, as well as all the members of Council. We are currently in the next phase of looking for trainers that would be appropriate for the outlined. And when we have more of a price range, we can get that back to you. If you guys have any questions, let us know.
Thank you. So now I'm going to look to the members of the committee to see if they do have questions. Anyone have any questions or comments? And I'll try to keep my eye on the screen as well. Not at the moment. Yeah?
I wanted to mention that ideally we would implement this training for the committee in October at some time, if that works for everybody.
Okay, so that'll be a challenging doodle poll. And that is very exciting. So I think that would be, I think we're a great place to start. So that is wonderful. I'm going to ask Irene to.
Thank you. I just want to say I appreciate the outline here, especially we're going to get us into some definitions around what is meant by diversity, equity, inclusion, and the difference between equality and equity, because it deals with people's expectations a lot. So I think that I'm looking forward to that training session to see how you unfold it. So you would see having our committee go through the training and then give you some feedback. We like this, we didn't like that, or some areas that were questioned. And then would you be taking it away and then amending, like trying to make amendments, or what would you see after our session, what would happen?
So what the idea is that we would test run the pilot training with you folks, and then we would take any sort of feedback from you. We would go back to the entire working group and kind of discuss what went well, what didn't go well. And then the CAO would like to propose this as part of her budget for next year. And we would like to be able to include also a recommendation from this committee to council, kind of endorsing the training and saying that it was beneficial and recommending it further.
Good.
Thank you. Councillor Pennell.
I think it's wonderful, and once again, if we're bringing it back at budget time, that's going to put it into next year, which I think is wonderful as well, because this fall is going to be hectic as far as budgets and that. And your council still has 2 years left. And I think it's great to bring it on. And I was a firm believer right from the start that we need this countywide. So, thank you.
Any further questions? So I have one. I'm just wondering if you foresee opportunities to tailor trainings to the workshop members. For example, when you're making policy decisions at the council level, you're dealing with potential knock-on effects on specific populations that a decision might not embrace. Or if you're in, working with a staff group who, to sort of ensure that they're developing their skills for doing youth outreach, that type of thing. Is that something that you see could be potentially included?
For sure, and in conversation with the CAO, we were discussing finding someone to do the training who would be able to tailor the training to each specific committee, board, and for council. We do recognize that every group is working with different groups of people on very different topics, and that DEI kind of 101 type of training is going to look different for everybody based on what they're doing.
Thanks for the clarification. That's great. Yes, Caprice.
And then also to add that this could potentially expand into the internal departments, so staff as well. So it won't just be committees and boards and council that we're looking at, but we're also looking at creating a healthier workplace here as well internally. So I also wanted to note that.
That's lovely. That is very good news. Thanks.
To go off what Caprice is saying, I know that our HR would like to implement this as a mandatory training when you get hired on, whether it's part-time or full-time, that it would be something that we implement moving forward to help get everybody on the same level. And then that way you have different tiers, like in moving up and things like that, and just to keep people involved.
Mm-hmm.
But we're starting at the top.
That would be, I think, the vision that I'm hearing in time, starting at the top and moving forward, is very positive. Stuart.
Yeah, just listening to the discussions. First of all, I wanted to mention the paperwork, the write-up that was provided was very good, and I appreciate your presentation. Thank you for that. Listening to everything, it sounds like you'd like to trial it with this group this fall, October-ish, get into the budget cycle, and then roll it out next year. Now, and then there was some comments about potentially making this an ongoing event or training. So in that way of thinking, is it always going to be an in-person, or is it going to move to more of an online training? When things tend to be ongoing, it's easier to transition to more of a recorded type training. What are your thoughts on that?
There you go. What we've kind of been discussing is for the initial training sessions, it would be kind of in person. There would be potential to look at virtual training sessions, kind of depending on the situation and the group that we're working with. But we do know for this type of a conversation, it's a lot easier to have it in person, where some people who may not feel very comfortable discussing this type of a topic are kind of forced to be in that room and have those uncomfortable conversations, because that's how you learn when it comes to talking about what makes each of us individual and what makes us ourselves. That can be uncomfortable for some people, and it's important to be able to face that. But in terms of the future, when it comes to being mandatory as we're bringing on new staff, that is down the line, but we've kind of been talking about making it into some sort of a module, similar to how when staff come on are doing AODA training and things like that. We just don't know what that's going to look like, and it's also going to depend on who we contract to do the training. We're hoping to contract them to be able to take ownership of the training material once they have completed the in-person training, but we don't have all of those details quite yet.
Thank you. So are there further comments or questions? And Jeff, just check in on the screen. Okay. You're good? Thanks. So
no questions.
Thank you. We've got this on the floor. Thank you very much. Thanks for your work. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks for presenting. This is the first time for a couple of you. It's wonderful. All in favor? Great, that carries easily. Thanks. So next, we have the update on the nonprofit sector Forward Together networking event for that's coming forward October 2nd. And we've got the poster attached. Do you want to? Olivia's going to do that, so we'll turn the floor over to Olivia. Thanks so much. Take it away, Olivia.
Thanks, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay. I haven't been here in a while, so I'm like, I forgot how to use the little mic. I'm just going to read. I wasn't at the last meeting that we had, but it's coming up very soon. So our event is called Forward Together. It's on Wednesday, October 2nd from 4 to 6 at the Picton Library. You should all have received the email with the poster. It's also linked in the agenda. We're really excited. We're hopeful that we'll have a few more attendance from the nonprofit sector, but I think right now we're sitting at about 8. So really great vested interest from the community. So I just suggest, if you haven't read the email yet, share it with your friends and family and any other community members who you think might be of interest. And our group will be coming together, hopefully, I think it's next week, to discuss any outstanding items to plan the event. So we're looking forward to it. Should be a good turnout.
That's great. Are there questions or comments for Olivia, who I believe you've worked with the clerks as well. So, and Catalina's here if you've got questions for Olivia or Catalina. Yes, Gisela, please. No, that's on.
Oh, it's
great.
on.
Yeah.
You need to know how many people are coming, is that correct?
From the community, we don't need to know exact numbers. We're looking more for a registration list of the actual community organizations who will speak at the event. But we just want a lot of the public to come and enjoy and learn from what accessibility options there are. And so if family and friends end up wanting to come and enjoy that event, the more the merrier.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions and comments? Councillor Pennell?
I was just gonna say, great timing, the day after at Base 31 for celebration of the new hospital. So it's a great time to have it taking place.
That's great. Okay, and well, if there are no further comments, can I get someone to put this on the floor? And, maybe I'll single out Jeff because he's not had a chance to move anything yet this meeting. Jeff, do you wanna?
Okay, yep, sure.
Excellent, thanks. Anyone else care to second that motion? Thank you, Gisela. Oh, you beat Councillor Pennell. Well done. All in favor? That carries. So next, item 8.5, we've got the update from Access the County Task Team, which I think is you too. So we're going to hand it back over to Olivia. Thank you very much, Olivia.
Thank you. It's me again. Don't get sick of my voice. I also wasn't here for this last meeting. I was just back from Halifax for a week away. So I'm going to just reference my notes here. And I can't remember, Julianne, you're here, so I'm going to nod to you if I'm missing this. But I believe we haven't updated our committee yet on David and Pina. Is that true? Okay. So we have recruited a really wonderful team of accessibility professionals with firsthand experience. Their names are David and Pina. They're from Aquium Group, and they are our training lead kind of experts. So we're really excited to have them on to sort of develop the program. So we recruited them around the end of July to help create a training program for businesses in the county. Currently, we're in the middle of the program design and curriculum development phase, which will be in for about two months. Obviously, Caroline and Sarah are instrumental in what we do as well. So Sarah, who works alongside Julianne, said the latest meeting, which took place last week, went really well. We also had Mark Rose join us for that meeting, which is the Picton BIA Executive Director. We've also included Duarte from the Prince Edward Chamber of Commerce, as well as Evan Nash from the Wellington BIA as part of those conversations as community leaders. Since then, David and Pina have shared some details with us on some sample training programs, what an online learning platform could look like, And just as a part of our next steps, we're recruiting some more business champions to help lead that charge with us, as well as continuing the conversation with those 3 community leaders I had referenced. And we're going to look at some dates for training and workshops to take place with our own community members, and then kind of look at the next steps for train the trainer. And I think that's pretty much where we're at. But we're really, really excited to have this next step with us. And they have some really incredible ideas in store for us. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And thanks for, taking on so many things. So I wonder, I don't think the next item's yours, but you're a busy bee and that's wonderful. Thank you. So questions or comments for Olivia? Also, we do have Julianne in the room who might be willing to scoot up to the front if anything is applicable. Does anyone have a question or comment? Perfect. That makes life easy. Okay. So, can I get a mover? Did we put this on the floor? We did not. Can I get a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor? And I'll pick on people. Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Councillor Pennell. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. So we are going to move on now to 8.6, and this might be my favorite item on the agenda tonight because it makes me feel less guilty about my own lack of support that I've provided to our chair. Irene has had to do the lion's share of planning working group work without any support practically from me, and I'm so grateful that we have a volunteer. So this item is that Stuart Houlihan be appointed to the Site Plan and Planning Applications Working Group pursuant to the terms of reference. This is sort of part of the meat and potatoes of our committee's work, and it's really important. And like I said, I've not been very helpful, even though I'm actually a member of the planning working group, and Irene has done a ton of work. And it's a really interesting working group, and we've got a volunteer joining it. So that is just so wonderful. Can I get a mover and a seconder? I think Irene wants to move that one, and Councillor Pennell wants to second. Terrific. All in favor, with grateful thanks. And that carries. Thank you so much. So our final item for consideration, number 8.7, is a discussion on the work plan. So this is the opportunity at every meeting when we can, pardon me, discuss the work plan itself, whether our priorities are being met, if they should be shifted, if something should be prioritized higher or lower, or if there are items we should be considering in addition. And if any of you would like to make any comments related to any item on the work plan or any item that you think should be included on the work plan, now's your moment. Councillor Pennell.
I just got a comment, and that is, I've been so proud to work with a group that I feel has accomplished in the last year what was almost unbelievable a year ago. So thanks to everyone that's involved in the committee, both before and new members, because you're the ones are going to make things happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. It's a great team, isn't it? Great members of the public representing our public, and great staff members who come in and support this committee, and our wonderful clerks, of course, and our fearless chair. So, lovely comment, thanks. Any further comments or discussions that people would like to begin? We're okay. Well, that's easy. Oh, you do. Sorry, back to Councillor Pennell.
I was going to suggest our meeting November 19th, we're not into Christmas festivities, but you know what? It might be nice to meet a half an hour early, maybe have a few sweets or whatever, and
Roy's a baker, just so you're warned. Roy bakes.
but anyway, just a thought, just as kind of a welcome to everyone.
Ah, that's lovely. I could get behind that too. So, I mean, maybe we could take that conversation over to email.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. We can discuss further. And just before we go, I just want to make sure, are there comments? Great. So, can I get a mover and a seconder to put the discussion of the work plan on the floor, or did we put it on the floor? No, we didn't. Can I get a mover and a seconder to put it on the floor so that we can receive the Accessibility Advisory Committee work plan discussion? Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Gisela. And all in favor? And that carries, thank you. And that takes us to next meeting date, which is November 19th. So, you know, all good with everyone so far? Any issues? There will be, for sure. Is that going to be but that'll be announced properly, and that will be a special meeting. Yeah, that's the DEI meeting. We can do that. Do you want us to do anything? I mean, are we still maintaining our November regular meeting date? And we'll announce the special meeting when we know what the date is. Okay. Okay, great. So this is the final motion of the night. Adjournment. Who would like to put this on the floor? Gisela would like to put this on the floor, and Irene would like to second it. Okay. That this meeting now adjourn at 8:02 p.m. All in favor? That carries. So that means we're allowed to go home, everyone. Thanks. And thank you to people participating through the Zoom. Thanks so much.
If I could just, if I may, this is Jess speaking. Hi, this is Jess speaking.